welcome everyone to another edition of the Hallows podcast. And we have with us guests here with us is Mike Penca of the Flagstaff Unified School District. Thank you for joining us, Mike.
Hey, it's an honor to be here.
Yeah. And superintendent there for how many years now?
This is my 8th school year, just wrapping up 8th school year as superintendent. So it's been just a wonderful school communities. I'm really proud of the work that we're doing, and we work with really talented kids and amazing staff and a really awesome, vibrant community. And so, really privileged to be superintendent.
Yeah, it's a good kind of time of the year as we look back, and we have 3 in DeMiguel, 1 in Mims, a first year middle school, and we survived that. Love all the staff and community over there and at DeMiguel. We've been part of that family for a long time here, and it is a nice time of year to just kind of look back and have that little sense of gratitude on everyone survived and everything worked great, and our kids have just grown and thrived. It's fun to see each one of them individually of just so many good connections there.
It's great to hear.
Yeah, and we're excited to particularly connect today regarding the Flagstaff Unified School District Attainable Housing Committee. Right. And that's something that you and I have been able to work on. I've been privileged to be part of that committee that you've headed off there. And that was at the start of the new year. Right. And so I wanted to get in. Let's just jump right in. Why did the district see the need to create such a committee?
I think I see it from kind of 2 ways that it's impacting the Flagstaff Unified School District, the housing challenges that we have here in our community. First, as superintendent, we are seeing declining enrollment. We're seeing less students in our community, and that there's a combination of reasons. It's, we're seeing lower birth rates. We're obviously seeing, just challenges in the economy, housing specifically, and hearing that story from our, staff and families, that we're not able to live and work here. It's too challenging. And then obviously there's school choice. So there's a lot of factors. So I see that as a superintendent, we're seeing declining enrollment. And then in the last several years, just hearing more and more stories of our staff, either who tell us, hey, I love working for FUSD and being part of Team FUSD, but I just can't afford to live here anymore. And or we will be hiring, and so we hire about almost 100 new teachers every year. So I don't know, we have about 500, between 550 and 600 teachers that are employed, and they might accept a contract in April, May, and then through those summer months, they back out and say, I just not able to find an affordable place to live. And so we're left kind of scrambling a few weeks before school, or people before they accept that contract will start to, I want to live in Flagstaff. And then they start doing their homework and looking around the community and let us know that, they're not able to, accept that job. And that, it happened with, we saw it in the teacher pool. We see it, we have hourly staff. So, educational aides, bus drivers, custodial, we see it with our hourly employees. But in the last couple of years, we've even seen it in the administrative ranks, where we might interview and offer a principal position, and then they turn it down because they can't find an affordable place to live. And so it's become more apparent that this is an issue. I'm aware, our city is, deemed this a housing crisis. But I think I, as superintendent, starting to feel that more intensely and more frequently than in the past.
Yeah, and I think, as you and I have been talking about that too, there's been I've been here in Flagstaff for 16 years, and there's kind of that old adage of poverty with a view, and we kind of laugh it off. And but really finding that as things have shifted, and especially over the last 5 years, very rapid shifts in the real estate markets here, to where it's kind of not so funny anymore, right? And a lot of people are personally impacted by that on all spectrums of that housing continuum, right? When we talk about someone just initially getting into some type of sustainable, affordable rental versus, hey, I have goals, I want to move up or create, grow family and have additional opportunities here in the housing market that I can't, attain. And so, yeah, so it's one of those things that we've kind of, as we were discussing before too, of like complex problems require complex solutions. And I think I've been inspired by just knowing that, okay, there's a lot of community that has to come together. We can't count on, no one created this. And so it's not just a, what's the Ronald Reagan line? Like, I'm from the government, I'm here to help kind of thing. Like, we can't count on, City Hall fixing this. We can't count on national markets or politics to fix this. This is something from a community level and kind of grassroots. I think we all have to kind of wrap our heads around some different solutions. What are some of the, and it's been a broad base, so from as you and I discuss here, what are some of the different ideas or solutions that are being discussed as far as like what the committee can do?
Yeah. I mean, first, I'm just going to add that it seems like this has been a problem that has been talked about a lot.
Yeah.
But maybe we haven't seen as much action. I mean, I am very lucky to serve, on ACONA, so I'm on the board for our economic development organization in our community. I partner very closely with, our educational partners at the Coconino Community College, NAU. We meet with the city and the county, Northern Arizona Healthcare, large employers. Like, we've been talking about this problem for a long time. Yeah. And so
you and I were just in a meeting last week with the mayor.
Yeah.
So with the Realtor Association. So lots of different connections there.
Yeah. And so I think this feels, at least for me, it was like you said, it was a complex problem. It's like, that old joke, and I was an old kindergarten teacher, so we tell bad jokes, was like, how do you eat an elephant? It was like one bite at a time, right? Yeah. And so I think for us, this problem wasn't created just in the last couple of years, and it's not going to have easy solutions. But I do think there are things that we can do as a school district that are those one bite at a time kind of solutions. And so, I was very fortunate to get connected with the Vitalist Health Foundation, and they are a nonprofit that's really supporting learning and discussion and also pathways to solutions. And they started with school districts around the state of Arizona looking at ways they might be able to use land that's being underutilized, other pathways for creating housing units. And they're also moving into kind of that nonprofit and faith-based sector that also might have land. And so we were able to write and receive a small grant, like $5,000. So again, we're not building housing units with a $5,000 grant, but what it provided us with is a housing consultant. So Christian Solario has been our housing consultant, and we've been convening a team, and you're one of the members of our team that's been meeting on a monthly basis. And we've been learning together and exploring different pathways. And I think our solution is going to be multi-pronged. Yeah. There are big things that the district could be involved in that could help to create housing. That could be taking that land and selling it, either selling it outright to a developer. That would require some, a community election to authorize that because those are public lands. Or we could sell or do a long-term lease to another public entity, city, county, university, another public agency. And move that kind of development responsibility of that land on to, another public partner. We could, win the lottery, raise funds that allow us to build and maintain for, the lifespan of those housing units, some kind of housing solutions on our own land. And that, again, that's a possibility we're exploring. Yeah. And then I think where you've brought in good insight, I know we've had a committee member from the city of Flagstaff, is some of it's like education and creating awareness and almost providing like a coach, or we call it, I don't know, I think we on our committee call it navigation assistance. Yeah. But helping people understand the market, maybe how, some of the financial tools that are out there to help them save and actually actualize that home that they aspire to. Understanding there are assistance programs out there in our community that people may not know about, or sometimes there's other barriers, pride sometimes, right? Of asking for help. And so we're trying to how can we create those warm handoffs and have really vetted good partners who can really support our staff, no matter where they're at on kind of this continuum of, I'm looking for a more affordable place to rent. I'm looking to move out of renting to home buying. I'm have my first home. Now I want to acquire maybe a bigger home or those kind of things. And so we understand our employees are in different stages of kind of that home attainment journey.
Absolutely. And I loved how the committee's seen that of each individual goals have validity and importance, right? Is it's extremely personal, and their goals of becoming valuable in their position and growing in their value to the community, but then being able to attain these personal goals that they have. And it's been very, very interesting. So it's very eye-opening. I think we jumped in at the first part of the committee with Christian, who's unfortunately unable to join us right now, and talking through. He's been a great resource to say what is actually not just in the clouds of, hey, here's different ideas, but he's brought in day one, this 10-page, 12, 15-page case study of here's what other areas in your state are doing of creating teacherages or housing community, or have sold land and now there's large development happening on that. But then knowing, like you said, that elephant one bite at a time here of the potential complexities of us being able to evaluate. And that's where we just gone through the survey phase and being able to then really understand, well, who is this benefiting? How can we have maximum benefit to primarily the employees of the district, but also potentially, some of these projects may even impact families of the district right? If there is a large land sale and large development, well, due to fair housing, can't restrict to teachers, but could have, benefit to teachers and other people then being able to afford attainable housing in the community. So there's been that dynamic, but like you said, on the navigation side, there is just so much to be said for they don't teach this in school, ironically, right? We had the opportunity just a couple weeks ago to do a little pilot presentation over in Killip Elementary, and it's just so awesome to be sitting there with about 30 or so educators there in the room, and finding just a lot of I talk about this a lot of times, like the dentist, right? These are things that, people get maybe a little uncomfortable, or maybe there's some shame around with their finances, or they don't really, want to deal with it that often, or assess something that they have to make some changes or something. And I think, I think we were maybe fairly fortunate post great, I'm bouncing around here a little bit, but just post Great Recession, housing affordability was very, very strong, historically strong. There was very good affordability given a low interest rate environment and a lower housing price environment. And so it did actually create a lot of opportunities where folks didn't have to necessarily have too much navigation around it. They could kind of jump off. It's like running a marathon from a couch, right? You go from couch to marathon, and you could do that, right? Back in the last decade. But in the last 5 years, we've kind of seen all right, it's not new, but it is kind of old school where you actually have to really get on top of this and make some steps. And it might not just be like, hey, we saw a house we loved and want to buy it. You might have to say, okay, the next year, 2, 3 to 5, we're going to really get on this regimented plan and take the right steps so we can be there and make it happen. We can't just snap our fingers. And sure, it's kind of a bum deal. Things have shifted, but it doesn't mean that we can't, that especially from the housing committee type standpoint, that it doesn't mean that it's not worthwhile to still pursue that and to still, but having the resources and having the plan and getting people on that track to see, okay, these little shifts here in goals and spending habits can make massive, massive impact to you. And that's where hopefully, we can have the market, create more opportunity in the market. And, like the committee, part of the group we were in last week was talking about creating more affordable housing. So the creation of affordable housing is something that community needs to work on, but also working to help that community rise to the challenge of this community, right? Because I think that's the hard part is Flagstaff has so many people that are interested in living here. That's part of the problem. And so not only the teachers and nurses and firefighters and the community workforce that wants to live and enjoy Flagstaff, but a lot of folks that just love the mountains that we have here too.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in the conversation with the Realtor Association, I sent back kind of their 4-point plan to Christian to give some feedback. And he sent that to the person who organized the meeting. But it's like some of our zoning code stuff doesn't really match with what everybody's talking about, what we're hearing, and then we say it's a crisis. And so I think there are governmental and policy things that need to change. There's, obviously partnerships that can be developed, developers. One thing that I've learned in the committee is even how could the school district cultivate more relationships with some of the property management groups, because we're seeing housing units popping up and opening soon. How could me as superintendent, our HR team, or somebody on our team cultivate those relationships so that as there's new housing opportunities coming on board, if somebody's looking for a bigger or a better or a cheaper, whatever it is, they're looking for some mobility in their housing, that they know some of those opportunities. And so again, a lot of it is, it's going to be these relationships and partnerships that we can develop that'll help us get through this challenging time. And, I think also realtors play a part. I was just thinking as you were talking about how it was like easy to buy a house, finance a house when I don't know, the interest rates, it was cheap and there was houses to be bought, right? And it got way more complicated. I was thinking after the pandemic hit and people were like, I don't know, read somewhere it was like the Great Migration. People were just moving in and out of houses and all over, but you were hearing about, you got to have cash offers and waive the inspection and above asking and all. Like all of a sudden the game that we knew before was very much different. And so again, having those trusted professional partnerships, I think, are really important as you kind of navigate. Things are different. It's more complicated than it was back, in the early 2010s, probably.
Yeah, and I think to that extent, and I talk, a lot of folks have, and I don't fault anyone for having very emotional reactions to some of this, right? But hope is not a strategy, right? Yeah. And I think that's ultimately as much control, and that's a myth, right? Mm-hmm. No one has the button on this market for affordability, but as much as we can then assert and impact that change, I think is the key part here in so many different areas here. And I think that's the key here is as our community becomes more aware of it, it has changed. It's not just like hey, buckle up, buttercup, you just got to save more, do this. We're probably going to have to make some of those changes, but we're also, from a community policy, from a creation, and it was really neat in that meeting that we were in last week to see builders, representatives of all major employers, and just people say, hey, we need to make this happen for the community, and what everyone's got to pitch in a little bit here. So I'm super excited to continue to work with the community. I know we got the survey that we'll be digesting.
Yeah, I was just thinking when you said hope's not a strategy, also, to help inform us as a district committee who will, in the end, an outcome of our Attainable Housing Committee is that we provide a roadmap for decision makers, and I get to be a decision maker, but also for our governing board, some of our committees that oversee, how we spend funds, to have this roadmap of this, again, multi-pronged strategy. But we're not just like relying on, I heard, somebody told me they're having a tough time. Anecdotal, we wanted to have data. And so we were able to leverage some of the grant funds that we received and partner with Northern Arizona University, the Economic Policy Institute, and create a really fine-tuned survey for FUSD employees that will provide really important data that will help guide those actions. So it's not just, I think we need, but we know because the data is telling us. And so I was really, we'd love to have 100% participation, but we got a sample over 400 responses. So, it'll be a representative sample, and I'm excited for, to hear from our great partners at NAU about, what the data is telling us and how that might guide or help us maybe even prioritize which strategies we need to, invest our time or dollar resources in first, and not losing sight that, there's probably everything is on the table. I mean, if you have time or money to do all those, I think so, but it might help us to prioritize those strategies. So I'm excited. Our next committee meeting is coming up this week. And so we'll be able to hear, what those responses are telling us, and that'll help lead us into really fine tuning that roadmap that we'll be wanting to present to our governing board in June.
Yeah. No, I think it's awesome. It's been something that I've talked to my team for a very, very long time of, as we see, the continued creation of kind of haves and have-nots here in Flagstaff. That's super difficult. I think you and I had spoken where, as I was starting to see the market shift as a professional, and then all of a sudden, like I looked at my wife at one moment, like we were talking about, in the crazy like bid over ask and things just taking off, and the median home price is really shifting, and finally kind of slowed. I slowed down enough to kind of see what's happening. I said, honey, like, who are our kids going to go to high school with, right? These are big shifts that could change the makeup of what Flagstaff is. And although, growth and change in some way is inevitable, like I think we all can play a part in saying, okay, let's find those core values and try and maintain those as much as possible.
Yeah. Sorry to cut you off. I think, all of us want to have a community where your teachers and your law enforcement, your firefighters and your public works employees and your college professors, like all of us can live in this great community. And I heard, I don't know, a couple of years ago, I kept hearing like, we're going to become the next Aspen. And then people say, we're going to become Sedona. It's like you can see that start to happen where only, a certain few are able to afford to live here, and everyone else who maybe works to keep things moving and operate our great community have to commute in, from all the outlying areas where housing is more affordable. And so I think we're on the right track, and it seems like things are coming together. Not only, things we're trying as a district, but, some of those community partners I mentioned earlier. And then, obviously maybe even things, at the governmental city council level, may be able to help us really move the needle and take several bites off this elephant, right?
Exactly. No, awesome. Well, no, it's been, I'm excited to see where as we progress with the committee, where those action points will come out and that continued conversation with the educators, primarily the educators in the school and then the community there. But is there anything else that you'd like to include or add? Or
just say I'm really grateful for the insights that you bring to the committee, and thanks for when I reached out to saying yes, and I'm excited to hear more about as you're able to connect with our employees on individual or in some of those group settings, some of that feedback we receive to help us kind of fine tune that assistance that we can provide is really like a benefit to me. It's like just like we have health care, dental benefits. How can we help provide financial consulting, if it's housing navigation assistance as really a work benefit to our employees.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, a stable, happy workforce is just better for everybody, better for my kids, better for our community, and being able to have an accessible, diverse housing opportunity, I think is just going to be amazing. So thank you, Mike, for all that you're doing.
Great.
We're excited to keep everyone updated.
All right. Thank you.